I used to live in a small house on the edge of town. It was the kind of place where nights were darker than they should have been, and the silence never felt natural. The roof was old tin, patched in places, warped in others. When the wind moved across it, it made a sound that almost breathed. For a long time, I told myself that sound was all it was, just wind. But that changed one night in November. It was around 2 in the morning when I woke to something different. Not the slow creak of branches, not the hum of the air outside. This was weight. Something had stepped on the roof. It was faint at first, just a single thump, then another, closer to the center. Each step made the rafters groan, slow and heavy. The sound stopped above my room. I waited, holding my breath. There was only silence, a silence so deep it hurt my ears. I reached for the lamp, but stopped halfway. Turning it on felt wrong. If I couldn't see it, maybe it couldn't see me. Then came a scrape, metal on metal, like nails dragging across the tin. It moved slowly, dragging from one end of the roof to the other, then back again. Each time it passed over me, I could feel the vibration through the walls. The air in the room felt different, colder, stiller. Even the usual night sounds, crickets, the far-off highway, were gone. I realized then that the world outside had gone completely silent. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at the ceiling. At some point, I started counting the seconds between steps, but they didn't follow any rhythm. Sometimes it would move quickly, scurrying like an animal. Then it would stop for what felt like minutes, as if listening. I tried to tell myself it was a raccoon, or maybe a stray cat, but the weight was wrong. Too heavy, too careful. When it finally stopped, it was right above my bed. The metal dipped with a deep, hollow groan. Then came a sound I'll never forget. A slow exhale right above me, like someone breathing through their teeth. I didn't move, didn't blink, just waited. And after a while, it began to move again, crawling toward the edge of the roof. Each step faded until there was nothing. By dawn, the world felt normal again. Birds were back. Wind moved through the trees. I convinced myself it had been a dream. But when I stepped outside, I saw something on the roofline. The metal was bent, 3 deep impressions where something had pressed down. Beside them, scratches, long and uneven, cutting straight through the paint. I thought about climbing up to look closer, but something in me said not to. Instead, I stood there, watching the roof as the sun came up behind it. It looked quiet again, too quiet. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in that room. I moved to the couch facing the front door just in case. And for a few nights, nothing happened. Then on the 4th night, the sound came back. Same time, same weight. Only this time, it didn't stay on the roof. It moved down. At first, I thought it was just the walls settling, the faint pops and sighs an old house makes. But then the noise shifted. From above to the side. The siding creaked as if something heavy was pressing against it. Then came the sound of nails sliding down the wall. Slow, dragging, until it reached the window. I couldn't see anything through the curtains. Just a faint outline of branches in the moonlight. But I swear I heard it breathe again. Closer now, right behind the glass. I sat there, frozen, until the first light of morning crept into the room. The noise never came back after that. Not that night, or the ones that followed. I moved out 2 weeks later, left most of my things behind. A few months after, I drove by the old place just once. The new owners had replaced the roof. Fresh tin, clean, even lines. But as I slowed near the driveway, I noticed something at the edge of the gutter, a patch of metal, warped inward. as if something had once crouched there, waiting. I didn't stop, didn't look twice. Some things you don't need to see again. I still remember the sound of that breath. Every winter, when the wind hits my new house just right, I hear it again. The faint scrape, the slow exhale, and for a moment, it feels like it found me. I spent 5 years driving long haul through the Appalachian routes. Nights out there can stretch forever, the kind of dark that eats your headlights, the kind that makes you forget where the world ends. Most drivers learn to tune it out. I never could, especially after what happened that winter outside Knoxville. There was an old truck stop off Highway 11. It hadn't been listed on maps for years, but some of the older drivers still remembered it. They called it Cold Creek, said the food was good and the coffee never stopped flowing. I'd pass by the exit sometimes, but never turned off. Then one night, I did. It was close to 2 in the morning, snow starting to fall. The interstate had been dead quiet for over an hour, not a single pair of taillights ahead or behind. When I saw the faded sign for Cold Creek glowing weakly in the snow, I figured it was better than pulling off on the shoulder. The ramp curved downhill into the woods. No lights except the dull red of my brake lamps reflecting off trees. At the bottom, the truck stop came into view. A single building with a row of pumps long out of use. The windows were dark, but there was a faint amber light spilling from one inside corner, like an old diner lamp left on for closing. A single rig sat in the far corner of the lot, engine off, windows frosted. I parked a few spaces away and killed my lights. The snow was falling harder now, muffling everything. It was the kind of silence that made your ears ring. I stepped down, stretched, and walked toward the building. The front door had a bell that didn't ring when I opened it. Inside smelled of stale coffee and something metallic, faint but sharp. There was a counter, a few empty stools, and a jukebox covered in the dust. No sound, no movement, but the amber lamp I'd seen through the window was still on, sitting over the coffee pots behind the counter. The air felt heavy, like the heat hadn't been on in days. I called out, just a quiet, "Hello?" No answer, only the faint hum of the old refrigerator in back. That's when I noticed the cups. 3 of them, half full, lined neatly on the counter like they'd just been poured. Steam was still rising off one. I remember touching it. The porcelain was warm. Something about that didn't sit right. There were no footprints in the snow outside but mine. No tire tracks from anyone leaving. Then I heard it. A faint shuffle from the far hallway, the one leading to the restrooms. It wasn't fast or panicked, just steady, measured, like someone walking in slow circles. I waited, trying to listen. The sound stopped. The hum of the fridge filled the silence again. I backed toward the door. My boots felt too loud on the old linoleum. Before I reached the exit, a voice called out, low, calm. "Coffee's fresh." I froze. It came from behind the counter. But no one had been there a second ago. I turned, slow. There was a man standing by the pots, tall, wearing a faded uniform with no name tag. His face was half in shadow. He didn't move closer, didn't blink. I started to say something, ask if they were open, but the words stuck in my throat. He just smiled, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly, then nodded toward the cups. "You can sit if you want," he said. Cold night. I should have left right then, but something about the calm in his voice made me stay, like I'd stepped into a place where normal rules didn't matter anymore. So I sat down at the counter. He poured coffee into the fourth cup and slid it toward me. His hands looked wrong, skin pale, almost gray under the yellow light. I didn't drink it, just watched the steam curl upward, slow and quiet. After a minute, I asked if he got many drivers anymore. He stared past me toward the window. "Used to," he said. "Not much these days. Roads changed. People forgot how to stop." There was something final in the way he said it. No bitterness, just fact. The silence stretched. The old jukebox clicked softly, though it wasn't plugged in. Then, from the hallway, came another set of footsteps. Lighter, quicker. I turned, but there was no one there. When I looked back, the man behind the counter was gone. No sound, no movement, only my untouched coffee cup, still steaming. I backed away, heart pounding now. The snow outside was blowing sideways across the windows, the light flickering with every gust. As I reached the door, I caught a reflection in the glass. The man again, standing where I'd just been sitting, hands folded, eyes fixed on me. Only this time, his face was clearer. He wasn't smiling anymore. I stumbled out into the cold, slammed the door, and ran for the truck. The other rig that had been parked there wasn't. No lights, no sound of an engine starting, just tire marks already half buried by snow. I climbed in, locked the doors, and started the engine. It roared to life like it didn't want to. As I pulled up the hill, I checked the mirrors, and through the drifting snow, I saw the truck vanish behind the trees. Lights gone, lot empty, as if it had never been there. When I reached the highway again, the exit sign was dark. Just a bare metal frame, no words, no trace of Cold Creek. I didn't stop driving until daylight. Didn't tell anyone about it for years. But a few months back, I met another driver at a way station near Nashville. Older guy. Said he used to run the same route. When I mentioned that old truck stop, his face changed. He said Cold Creek had burned down back in '92. Electrical fire, everyone inside gone before help arrived. 4 people, 3 regulars, and the man who ran the place. When I asked his name, he thought for a long moment before answering. Said it was hard to remember. Something common. Maybe James. Maybe not. I didn't push. We just stood there, listening to the hum of engines around us. He looked at me once more and said, "If you ever see that light again, don't stop." I haven't. But sometimes on long winter drives, I still think I see it. A faint amber glow, far down an exit that shouldn't exist. And for a second, I feel the cold air from that door and smell the coffee still waiting. I grew up in a small farming town in western Kentucky. We had one main road, a single gas station, and miles of open land that turned black after sunset. At night, the only light came from the stars, and from that field. People in town called it the Lattimore Place. Old family farm, abandoned after a fire sometime in the late '70s. They said lightning started it, though nobody ever proved it. What was left, a rusted silo, a collapsed barn, and rows of dead corn, sat untouched for decades. But every few years, someone claimed to see a light there, a pale, drifting glow that floated low to the ground. I never believed the stories, not until the night I decided to see it for myself. It was August, hot, still, and dry. The air had that heavy smell of dust and old soil. My friend Mason had heard the same rumors, and like me, he didn't buy into them. So one night, After a few beers by the river, we drove out there. It was close to midnight when we turned off the main road and followed the gravel path to the edge of the field. The headlights caught nothing but tall grass and a faint shimmer of fog hanging near the ground. No houses, no movement, just that endless stretch of open dark. We parked and killed the lights. The silence pressed in, like a weight. Not even crickets. I remember thinking how strange that was. The total absence of sound. We got out, flashlights in hand, and started walking toward the center of the field. The air was thick and unmoving. Each step made the dry stalks whisper around our legs. The ground felt soft, uneven, like something underneath was shifting slightly with each step. After a few minutes, Mason stopped. He pointed ahead. "Do you see that?" I did. A dim glow, faint and pulsing, maybe 50 yards away. It wasn't steady, it moved, like a lantern swaying in someone's hand. But there was no path, no road, nothing out there for miles. We stood there for a long time, just watching. The light would dim, then flare again, drifting a little to the side before sinking lower to the ground. I told myself it could be swamp gas or a reflection off some equipment. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Mason wanted to get closer. I didn't. But I followed anyway. The closer we got, the colder the air became. Not a drop in temperature, a drop in life. Everything felt wrong. Even the sound of our breathing seemed swallowed up before it reached the air. When we were maybe 20 yards away, the light stopped moving. It hovered there, still and silent. Then, without warning, it flared, bright enough to wash the field in white. I flinched and threw my arm up to shield my eyes. When the light dimmed again, something had changed. The ground where it had floated was darker now, as if the soil had been burned. Mason took another step forward. I grabbed his sleeve and whispered for him to stop. But he didn't. He just stared at that spot, jaw clenched tight. Then he said something I didn't understand. "It's not moving," he whispered. "It's waiting." I started to pull him back, but he resisted, staring hard into the darkness like he could see someone standing there. And then, just as sudden as it had come, the light went out, pitch black. I remember the silence that followed. No wind, no breath, nothing. Then came the sound, soft at first, like footsteps through the stalks, moving fast, coming toward us. I ran, didn't think, didn't speak, just grabbed Mason's arm and dragged him through the rows toward the truck. I could hear him stumbling behind me, gasping for air, muttering something under his breath, something about seeing a face. When we reached the truck, I threw open the door and looked back. The field was empty. But as I climbed in and started the engine, the headlights swept across something. A figure maybe, standing halfway to the barn. Too far to see clearly, too still to be human. We tore out of there, gravel spraying under the tires. Neither of us spoke the whole drive back. For days after, Mason wouldn't talk about what he saw. Said he'd been wrong, that it was just some trick of light or fog. But I could tell he was lying. He stopped going out at night after that, barely slept. Said sometimes he'd wake to a faint white glow outside his window, and the smell of burnt soil. 3 weeks later, he was gone. His truck was found abandoned off the same road we'd taken that night, door open, keys still in the ignition. The police searched for 2 days but never found him. They said maybe he got lost in the woods, but I know he didn't, because when I went to the edge of that field again, against every instinct I had, I saw something new. There, near the spot where we'd seen the light, the ground was blackened. The soil cracked and brittle, like it had been scorched. And right in the middle of it, a single set of footprints. bare, deep, leading halfway toward the barn before vanishing into nothing. That was 15 years ago. The town's grown quiet since then. The field's been fenced off, marked private property. But sometimes, on still summer nights, you can see the glow from the highway, a faint pulse just above the ground, flickering like a lantern in the fog. People still talk about it, say it's just swamp gas or static discharge from the soil. But every driver who's ever pulled over to look never stays long. They all say the same thing later, that the light moves closer when you watch it, that the air around it hums, and that if you stay too long, you'll smell the smoke. I've tried to forget that night, tried to convince myself we imagined it. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I see that glow again, slowly rising from the dark like something taking shape beneath the earth. And every time I pass a field at night, I find myself turning away. Because I know, somewhere out there, that light is still burning, still waiting. Just like it was that night we found it.